Welcome back to the channel. This is Wasabi. This is going to be a series of 3 battles in light tanks to discuss light tank tactics on a few different maps. Starting off on Procurabica map, which is probably one of the best maps for scouting to get the best results. Now we're following Gav from King's Clan in his T271 DA light tank. This is a tier 7 tech tree tank with a 6-shot autoloader. Now he's heading to the hill, and you will have seen in chat that he announced that he was going to the hill. That will help other players understand, that the light tank is going to be spotting from the hill, and therefore some players should follow to basically take advantage of spotting. So also initially he's loading standard rounds, basically because they're higher velocity than the premium rounds, which heat rounds. Basically, if your first round of shooting is probably going to be against your opposition light tanks, and you can see, that AMD 178B, bit of a stupid move. He's probably trying to YOLO, try and get the arty, but Gab spotted him and managed to get a couple of spots hits in. He didn't get much spotting damage out of that because the other tanks were all around him, which it just indicates also how stupid that was, but at least he's left the tanks on Gav's team in his favour. But he will, not a good move from a light tank perspective. So Gav spotted the Hellcat, but didn't have a good shot on him, and he didn't really want to reveal his position straight away, but he did get spotted, so he's in this dip here. Now that's a good tactic he just pulled off there. Travel in a direction while you're spotted, because you're spotted for 10 seconds, and then as soon as you're unspotted, you reverse and change direction, so they won't know exactly where you are. So you can see here he's spotted now a few tanks. There's an IS right at the back, which is a heavy tank, KV2, which is another heavy tank, which is basically down in the river, and there's a KV1S also down in the same spot. So mainly the IS is really exposed. He put in a shot there which looks like it connected, but he's now reloading heat. Now, the reason for doing that is, although it's lower velocity, APCR loses penetration over distance, whereas the heat doesn't. So as long as he connects with the heat, then it will do the same amount of penetration as if he was closer. So you've got to think about the characteristics of your tank to see how they suit your battle situation. So here he's just trying to keep the enemy lit up and let Arty do its work. He's already got over 1,000 hit points of damage for assistance, and he's just noticed that the Striv 74 has been lit on the enemy side, so he's just seeing whether there's an opportunity to get any more hits on him, but in doing so he's also covering this part of the map to see whether any other enemy tanks are moving up. So just moving backwards and forwards, keep moving your position, don't stay static in one location too long. Chances are some of these bushes will get blind fired anyway, so if you're really staying in one position, that's a risk you're going to take. So here he notices the KV1S has moved out of the river, and obviously it wasn't getting any point being there instead of hiding, of course, but Gav's managed to pick up all the damage of spotting, and now the KV2's been spotted moving, but doesn't really offer a shot. So Gav will just get out of third-person mode and see who's behind him. So we've got a Jagdpanzer IV and Achilles, as well as a couple of heavy tanks and mediums. So all basically providing fire support, free spotting, which is exactly what you need as a light tank. If you find you're in a position where you are spotting enemy tanks, but there's no one really there to take advantage of it, well then you're really in the wrong position, and you should try and find another place on the map. Either that, or basically, if you can engage your team to follow you up and get them in a position to shoot from where they're not exposed, but you're lighting the enemy tanks, then that's really the best outcome. But really depends on your team how they do that. So he's lit up while we're talking Tiger 1 heavy tank, which is down in the same position the KV2 is. Pretty useless position from a manner of engaging. but again, that's just illustrating the team he's up against. So he's now got nearly 3,500 spotting damage, together with his own damage, and part of what he just did there was basically scope the area the map he's moved into now, just to make sure there was no one down there, and take up a position, come along the side of the railway line. Now there's two things you can do here, basically. Spot any tanks by proximity on the other side of the railway line and let the artillery basically take them out. And here he's noticed the enemy Hummel, which is just on the side of the back of the hill there, and not going to be exposed to anyone, so he takes him out. He's still got heat loaded, but again, that's for shooting from long distance. And here he's spotted a SU-152, and you can see here he's got just the red outline so that SU won't notice him, but while he's reloading, he's not going to shoot straight away. He's noticed the Challenger on the hill, and he's just getting further and further away, so you can see where the Challenger is on the mini-map is just outside the view circle. So that means when he shoots, he's not going to be spotted by anyone, including the Challenger, who will probably have binocs up. So he's managed to get a few good shots into the Challenger, and also the KV-2 looks like the T-150 pushed down into where the KV-2 is and then got taken out by the Challenger pretty well. Won't give it a characterization just yet, but didn't really achieve the objective and got the T-150 killed, whereas artillery on the map, once you've spotted them, can basically do most of the damage, but potentially the T-150 was feeling a bit left out of it and wanted to get some action. Sort of can't blame them. So Gav's now got nearly 4,000 assisted damage out of this, and he's just going past Wazman from 1AR clan there, so shout out to Waz. But heading across here now, you can see here he's trying to avoid the cap circle. It's not completely avoidable, but what you're trying not to do is telegraph to the enemy that you're in that position. You can see there's an M12 ahead of him, gets demolished, and he's now spotting most of the remaining enemy, including the M44, so he's going after him. He's still got heat loaded, but the M44 does have a bit of armour, particularly frontally, but because we've got an auto loader, he's managed to take him out. So that's the game. So pretty fast moving, but you can see there how the light tank basically enabled that victory. Hi, it's the second game that we're going to show to highlight light tank tactics. We're on the Westfield map now with Gav in his T71DA. He's top tier now in this battle, and he's, as you can see, he's loading his standard rounds again. And just as a reminder, that's the reason why is probably the first tanks you'll encounter are the light tanks, which are fast moving, and you need the highest velocity shells you can get. And also they're lightly armoured, so even if it's at a longer distance, then the penetration really doesn't matter, so you don't need the heat rounds for that. So again, he's telling his team what to expect, not to just stop at the back places, but to keep moving up. He's accompanied by a Cromwell B medium tank, which will help him out in terms of fighting off an enemy. So he's moving up to this mound here. There's some good bushes here for spotting, and that will do exactly what he's done there, which is highlight enemy tanks which tend to take their first position on that mound where the T-3485 is. So now he's moving into a side position. There's a bit of a dip here which will hide your tank, plus give you some cover from the bushes, so you can move up closer and closer. And he's basically just trying to keep these guys lit and wait for the artillery to do work. There's an M12 on his team, so only one artillery, which is not going to be that useful in that sense because of the ability to pump rounds out. It's limited there to one gun. But here he's keeping tanks lit, and there's the T-3485, so no problem pinning that tank. But you can also see how he kept that tank as an outline through the bushes, so not exposing his tank to be lit. And every time he light someone up, he pulls back to see if he can keep the outline so that when he fires, he's got a full gap between him and the bush to minimise the chances of being spotted. One of the dangers of the light tank, if you want to do damage with it, is if you're trying to fire, it reduces your camo drastically, and therefore you need to protect yourself through the vision mechanics. So just basically moving backwards and forwards. While he's sitting here, he's just reloading. He had just down to 2 shots in the clip, so in case one of those tanks decides to push on him, he wants a full clip of rounds to give him some defense. So he's up to just over 1,000 total damage done and damage assistance, and now he's urging his team to keep moving up. You can see they're all way back there at K6, K7, which is exactly where he said don't stop. So he's keeping these tanks lit, but you can see there that he's firing through there. Now, he wasn't spotted there, but possibly the boogie saw where the shots were coming from and just blind fired the bush. So luckily it hit his tracks, didn't do any real damage, but the boogie's now been reduced to almost a 1 shot, 1 or 2 shots. So Gav is below. He's still beyond the bush there, it's clear, because he's close enough to the front of the bush, as you're probably aware, that's standard thing. So now he's moving forward on the boogie. He does get lit. Now the danger here is potentially opening yourself up to shots across from the other side of the valley, and there was a 234-85M on that side, so you just have to be careful with the angle that he's keeping here until he's unlit. But he does have tanks in control. The Super Hellcat is far enough up on that side to basically get shots in, and he manages to get the killing shot through the turret of the boogie, but again gets lit while he's doing that, so he's just pulling back to put the hill between him and potentially where the last enemy tank spotted was. So now running forward down into the valley, there were tanks spotted the enemy Cromwell, and now there's a GW Panther, so he's going across to the other side of the valley. Does get lit in the process, and the GW Panther gets taken out by his own team, who have pushed up now quite dramatically. So they've pretty much taken control of that west side of the map, enabled by Gav spotting. Now he's noticed there's a Cromwell above him, so he's just being careful. Noticed the T-34-85M that he was trying to avoid earlier. Also managed to get a shot into him, but he's keeping terrain between him and the others. Now the Cromwell's decided to push on him, which is probably not a great idea, and Gav's taken him out pretty much straight away. So he's doing most of the damage himself, 1,600 damage directly, and only 517 spotting. That's really just a reflection of where his team were in relation to his movements. But now basically they're mopping up. They've got a 7 tank lead, and he's now just in a position to farm damage out of the tanks that have been fighting out at the top part of the map. Gets a kill on the ONE and lines up the Tiger P. And now he's on the reload. The target gets taken away, and the enemy down to 2 tanks. So basically looking for any opportunity to do more damage. And this is the time in the map where both having an auto loader and being a light tank when the mobility really pays off. If you're still alive towards the end part of the game and you've got an auto loader and a lot of the enemy tanks are in a damaged state, you've got a good chance to pick up kills and sort of free experience. So there's an 88. He's really got the side of. He's just fighting with his members of his own team there for access to the tank. But in the end, he's ended up with 2,500 damage of his own and a total of 3,000 assisted. Right, this is the last battle of the light tank tactics for mid-tiers. This is Gav again in his T71 DA. So he's heading to the centre on this map, which is Fisherman's Bay, and there's a spotting position he's heading to, which is good for spotting tanks moving across the map to go into the city. So normally heavy tanks. So he's just moving up to this spot, and again he's loaded standard munition because he's the first tanks you normally spotted the light tanks on the other side, which are light skinned, and also the high velocity of the shells. So as you can see, he's just put a shot into the SP1C, which is one of the light tanks, German tier. It's on the side of the map where, yeah, most of the light tanks and medium tanks appear. So his team are helping to spot the medium tanks. So you can see there's a heavy tank heading down to the city. So he puts a shot but doesn't connect. Now he's also bottom tier in this map. So it's tier 7, tier 8 game, and he's in the tier 7. So he has to basically take care not to overexpose himself, because he'll be insta-penned by most of the tanks in the game. The enemy side have got a slight advantage there. The CS44 in the middle is on the same clan that Gav is in, and it's going to be around for the rest of the match, so we'll just see how that pans out. So you can see he's moving around to basically change angles and see if he can spot other tanks. One of the roles of the light tank, apart from spotting tanks to be shot, is to also inform your team as to where the enemy tanks are actually heading, so they can make their own minds up about where to position themselves on the map. So that's one of the most important things in the early stages of the game. So you can see here he's spotted a tank coming up from the back in sort of a late move, and he's managed to get side shots on them. So still, now he's moved into heat mode. Again, just from following on from the previous games, heat doesn't lose penetration over distance. So if you're shooting over a long distance, APCR will lose penetration. And the rounds he's using at the moment have a penetration of about 147 millimeters, I think, standard at 100 meters, but it drops off to about 100 millimeters of penetration at around 400 meters. So you've got to take that into consideration when you're shooting to understand whether you've got a reasonable chance of penning, whereas heat doesn't lose its ability to pen, because it's the chemical reaction from the high explosives that causes the penetration rather than the velocity of the shell. So again, that's one of the reasons why heat shells are a little bit slower through the air. Anyway, so he's basically run out of targets. So again, when you've lost spotting of the enemy, relocate and see whether you can get into a better position on the map. Now he's also basically trying to move while he's lit, so that he's out of sight from tanks that might be able to shoot him. And he's just noticed here that the enemy tanks, the heavy tanks, are moving through the city, and he's just trying to line up a shot on the tanks that are there, see whether he can help his team take it off that dice 3. He's just showing the top of his turret, so it's not really a good target, but nonetheless shooting. And he's just got spotted again. Might be that by that T29, so again, as soon as you get alerted, because generally most cases you're 2 seconds after you're being spotted before your signal goes off. So he goes to the other side of the map now, basically to get out of line of sight of those tanks. So you can still see those medium tanks in the middle, so they'll be dangerous, but they are losing health, and that can typically make them a bit more cautious. So any chance to get some damage of the tanks that might be spotting you should always take, as long as it doesn't put you at risk of losing all of your health. So we'll just see how this goes. There's the T20. Now he's backed away again to not show his outline, but even then he's a bit too close, as you're probably aware that you lose a lot of your camo when you fire, so you've got to be basically at least double bushed or more to not get spotted when you fire. And he was a bit too close there to the T20. You can see on the mini-map, basically it was almost within proximity spotting range. So you again got to take that into account when you're shooting, and as soon as you shoot, you should move. And one of the ways to do that is to back into the position, so that when you move out, you're in forward motion, which is your fastest mode. So patience is also what's being shown here, that he's not rushing into positions and trying to shoot teams. Again, he gets spotted. It was probably by the T20, just the top of his turret. All it needs to be visible to be spotted. So even though it's not a big tank, it's relatively tall. And now he's heading down to the back of the map. Now, partly that's because they seem to have lost their city. You can see on the mini-map that there's 3 enemy tanks basically on the edge of the city, and in particular the IS-3 has moved down right to the back of the map, and he's trying to see, and there's the idle device as well. So again, trying to remain unspotted himself, but spot the other tanks and get into a position where he can do something about those tanks. Now, I was tempted to shoot there at the T-29, but apart from the fact that he was moving, yeah, he might have lit himself up if that idle device pops up. But yeah, he doesn't want to lose health unnecessarily. It's always important to try and keep your health in the game, which keeps your gun in the game. And there he spotted the idle device for all of his health. So Gab's now up to just a total of about 2,300 spotted and damage of his own. Yeah, so the important thing is keeping your gun in the game for as long as possible means that you can deal more damage, and so staying alive is an important thing, particularly for a light tank. It's the late stages of the game where tanks have got less health, where you've got an opportunity with your probably low damage gun to still have an impact and take out those tanks. So the more guns you remove from the game, you have less chance you've got of your own crew getting killed. So here he's found the IS-3. IS-3's turret is pointed the wrong way. He's doing a circling of the IS-3, which is a common technique, basically to stay out of line of the gun, and he's got his full clip going, manages to kill the IS-3. So just again illustrate late stages of the game, you find a tank isolated and you've got a full clip in an auto loader like this, and you think you've got enough rounds in your clip to do the damage more than the hit points of the tank, then you can basically say, yep, okay, well, it's worth taking that risk to do it. But again, you've got to ensure that you stay out of line of the gun. One of the things to do, obviously, is to try and bait the enemy tank into shooting at you, knowing that he can't hit you, so that he's got a reload to go before he can even try and shoot again. And for the IS-3, for example, the reload is a fairly long amount of time, something like 11 seconds from memory. So he spotted that T-29 up in the middle here, and so he's just looking for an opportunity to get rid of him. The T-20 notices him come into position and shoots him, so he's now just unloading his clip while the T-20 is reloading, and that gets rid of him. The T-29 has moved down the field a bit, so he's basically out of range. But he's received a shot from the CS-44. It's probably now at the back of the map, given the way the game's panned out. They're basically two tanks up, so you've got to try and anticipate where the enemy tanks will move to as well, to understand whether as you're driving around the map, whether you're going to walk into a trap or what. So again, as you can see, the CS-44 at the back there's pretty much a one-shot. Tries to deal with him, but doesn't connect, and now he's found the side of the turret of the T-29. So, just misses out on the killing shot there. Probably the T-29's behind a rock, and yeah, wouldn't get there. So he's basically now just trying to stay alive and keep spotting. 11 tanks all. They've got a hit point advantage, but the key thing is to try and maintain vision. The Pantera there probably just over pushed into the tank destroyer at the back there, and that was lit by the tank destroyer and taken out by the arty. So again, that's one of the problems that you can face. So knowing where that tank destroyer was, Gav is just moving to a position where he can spot him if he moves out of range and light him up for his own arty. And in fact, the Borsig and his team takes out the Chinese tank destroyer. So they are still equal on kills on both sides. 3 tanks left on each side, 1 artillery and 2 tanks. The T-29, we knew from seeing it, is on a single shot kill, and there's the CS-44, which we saw was also very low health, something like 14 hit points. The Crusader SP hasn't been spotted. Obviously he'd be on full points most likely, unless someone counter-batteried him early in the game. So there's probably, at least you can see 456 hit points. That's about 400 there. Now he's moved to a position where he's spotted everyone. Does he take the risk and shoot? He does, shoots the T-29, but he gets spotted, and can he get out of range? No. He gets shot by the CS-44, who's clearly in a position, and knowing which way the tanks are going to come, the people are pre-aimed in this area. So that was the risk of taking that shot, was that, yeah, you'd get lit, and he wasn't really basically far enough away behind the bush for it to not break his camo. So the team is now still evenly balanced. They've got a fairly full health Borsig. In fact, yeah, completely full health Borsig. The M12 is just advised to move up, and that's basically to try and reduce the shell flight time. So if he gets the opportunity to spot from the Borsig's perspective, then it'll be yeah, a bit easier to make the shot so that they've got less time to move. So although Gav's dead, he's still trying to give constructive information to the team, knowing who's on the other side and where they're likely to be. So hopefully the Borsig is picking up that information. He's moving to a fairly open position, and hopefully he's going to use his vision to spot the enemy and give him the opportunity to remove them from the game. So we'll just hang in there and see what the result of this match is. So Borsig's moving up onto the cap area, and probably part of the intention there obviously is to draw the enemy out, so they have to come and respond and not just hide down in a corner of the map and hope for a draw. There's 2.5 minutes left, so there's plenty of time to get a result. But Borsig's also pushing right to the corner so that if they come out, he'll insta-spot them, and he can probably take a couple of hits with the health that he's got. Even though he's got, again, fairly long reload time, he'd probably outlast them as long as he shoots accurately. So here's the Crusader SP. It's been spotted, taken out by the Borsig. Although that's lit him up, he might just, yeah, you can see he's taken around from the CS-44. CS-44 hasn't been spotted there. Borsig moves. Again, you want the CS-44 to come out and take a shot. So assuming the Borsig's worked out which direction the shot was coming in fact there he is, you notice him, he's come right around the other side of the map and puts in a very accurate shot and takes him out. So well played everyone on that team. Good result, Gav, and we'll go and look at the results of all 3 games now. So let's take a look at the results. This is the one from the first battle on the Prokhorov match, where he finished with a total of nearly 7,000 combined damage, achieved the Ace Tanker badge for that quite well, as well as the medals for scouting and patrol duty, as well as Bescucci's for the killing the enemy arty. The second battle, which was on Westfield map, he finished second on experience, but only just. Got a first class badge for that, and again was a major influence on the battle as using his light tank. And the third battle, which was on Fisherman's Bay, he finished top on experience, again with first class badge, but again, as we've shown, his tactics with his light tank was a major reason for winning the game. So it just goes to show again that light tanks can really have a major influence. So thanks for watching.